Hello, good evening. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. I have a great topic for you, and the topic today is why VAWA reasons VAWA may be the best option. Now, when people think about VAWA, they think about a case that could be scary and messy, and that does not necessarily have to be the case here. The VAWA is for victims of certain types of mistreatment or abuse. And if they are facing abuse by a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident spouse, a parent if they're under 21, or by a U.S. citizen son or daughter 21 and up, then they could qualify for this form of relief that would allow them to get immigration benefits on their own without this abusive U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident relative. It would allow them to stay in the United States. It allows you to have your children come here with you or stay here with you if they're here without filing a separate application. You are protected under the law. It's confidential, meaning that it's not going to be a situation where you have to get the police involved or where the relative is going to be prosecuted or arrested. This is only for you to determine whether you do need this immigration relief. It does not require police involvement. It doesn't require medical records to show physical injuries. It does not even require physical injuries. What they do require is credible evidence. That means any believable evidence to show that you have been mistreated by a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, a parent if you're under 21, under 25 in some cases, or by a U.S. citizen son or daughter who's 21 and up. So as you can see here, if you're in a situation where you're being mistreated, you're stuck, you deserve to have the status here in the United States, this would be the way for you. And it's not going to be a situation where your information is going to be put out there publicly. Whether you're a man or a woman, it is confidential. And whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to qualify for this because it's not only just limited to relief for women, but also men. It also involves relief for verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse as well. So it's not just limited to physical, because remember, physical is a type of mistreatment or abuse. It doesn't mean that it is the only type of abuse. There are other types of abuse that creates the same side effects, the same impacts on individuals, the same as physical. So there's emotional abuse that may not leave external scars, but it certainly leaves internal scars. And that counts for you to get relief through VAWA. So I just listed a whole bunch of benefits. And when your back is against the wall, when you're trapped in a really bad situation, this can be the relief for you. I've seen that turn in my clients time and time again, where at first they're apprehensive, they're scared, understandably. They don't know what to expect. But as the process unfolds and they realize that this is for their benefit, it is such a pleasure to see how their attitude changes and they become confident in the decision they made to stand up for themselves, empower themselves, and move forward with the process. Now, with this VAWA, you would apply for your work permit while you're waiting for the process to be completed, your permanent residence. You could even apply for a travel document in the case that you do need to leave the country for brief periods of time without being stuck outside of the United States. You would be able to get a social security number along with a work permit. So as you can see, it provides you the tools necessary to go on, to move on with your life, to properly settle here, get your job that you want, or go to school, or achieve the goals that you need to achieve without the abuse. And it allows you to gain that kind of independence to move forward without the spouse, without the parent who's mistreating you, or without the US citizen son or daughter who's 21 and older. So that's what I came to tell you. Those are all the benefits, and I said it all in basically a breath. So now it's your turn to ask those questions. Now, go ahead, put your questions in the comments, and I will answer your questions. I'm both on YouTube, so hi there on YouTube. Always a pleasure to see you here. And I am here on TikTok. So put those questions in the comments. I'm keeping a close eye on the comments. So what kind of questions you would be asked when visa was revoked? So if your visa was revoked, it's going to depend. The questions really is going to depend on what the situation is. Why are you anticipating that your visa is going to be revoked? If you are anticipating a reason for a revocation, then it's probably going to fall in line with whatever you're concerned about. I wouldn't know this on any kinds of questions to anticipate unless I can actually review your situation in a consultation. Hi there, Maldan. Thank you for asking. It has been a good day. Thank you. I hope you're having a great day too. How long can an RFE take to be processed? So the RFE can go on for months, right? Especially right now, it's backlogged. Before there was a time limit, and even sometimes they would go over the time limit, but they were limited to 120 days, and then they would have to respond. Or you could put in a case inquiry. However, with the backlog being worsened, I'm seeing where we respond to requests for evidence, and it can go on as long as 6 months to get a response. And then again, it depends on what kind of request for evidence. Was it a request for evidence for your medical examination or your affidavit of support? If that's the case, they may just continue to process your application without even telling you what they've decided on your affidavit of support or on the medical. My husband lives in a different state from me. Would this be a problem for filing? So it may. You're gonna definitely have to be prepared for some questions in the interview. Sometimes it's justified, right? Sometimes you may be both trying to finish up school, and in the meantime, you've agreed to stay apart until you can finish up school. You may be pursuing a career in two different directions, and getting up and quitting that employment may not be the best thing right now for you and your family. And so you have to remain apart. It's going to come down to what your particular circumstances are. And then you have to make sure that when you go into the interview, you can present this effectively to the officer so that they can understand what your situation is, and that is not necessarily that your marriage is not real. It's just that you're facing circumstances that are forcing you to have a long distance long distance marriage for the time being. So it could go both ways. It could be a problem if you don't properly present the reasons that you're living apart, or it may not be if the officer understands what your situation is. Any good news in immigration field? So there is some news right now. They're trying to take actionable steps to reduce the backlog by implementing automatic employment authorization extension, premium processing for certain applications. They are trying to watch the situation and track how long processing times are taking so that they can then go ahead and reduce the processing times until it gets to a 6-month period. And so those are exciting. Also in the area of the H-2B, they have increased the number of visas available for individuals to come and work because in certain industries, they are short on workers. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing in the immigration realm. So there are different developments. I wouldn't say anything super exciting, but definitely we're seeing some, some small action steps here being taken to try to improve the immigration experience and the immigration process, and that's never a bad thing. Great questions so far. Keep putting those questions in the comments so that I may answer your questions. I'm here to answer. So go ahead, put those questions in the comments. I'm here from Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I come with a topic. I just basically gave you a quick summary of that topic, and it had to do with the reasons VAWA may be the best option for you. Now, VAWA is called the Violence Against Women Act, but keep in mind that it's not relief just for women. It's for men, it's for women. And it's not just for the marital relationship. It's also for the parent-child abusive situation as well. Now, if you're in a situation where your relative is not applying for you, or they're subjecting you to abuse and you really don't have any other way to empower yourself and gain status and escape the situation, it is in this situation that VAWA may be the best option for you, as long as you can show that qualifying family relationship and you are being mistreated. Now, how do you prove the emotional or financial abuse? That's going to come down to the evidence that you have in your particular situation. Okay, so RFE affect the timeline of my employment authorization request. So it's going to depend on the type of request for evidence. If you received one for the employment authorization, then yes. However, if you received this for an adjustment of status application, then not necessarily. They may still issue the employment authorization, even though you have a pending request for evidence, because your case is still pending. Can someone do asylum if there was overstay or been an abusive relationship and run away to the US? So it's going to come down to the situation, the conditions in the country, the particular situation with the spouse. So in this case, for example, in a Central American country, they have been found to get asylum if they were married to an abuser and had to escape the situation and they ran away to the United States, because in the country, the domestic violence is not there's no enforcement against domestic violence or very little in the country. And because of that, married women of abusers who are trying to escape or couldn't escape their situation, they were categorized as a particular social group in that country. That means, so they were a part of a particular social group, and they were facing the domestic violence as a form of persecution, and their government, which would be the police, law enforcement, they were not doing anything to stop the domestic violence against these women. And so in a case like that, asylum could very well be a feasible option. But it's really going to come down to circumstances. In addition to that, they just withdrew. So there was a decision that the Attorney General made a few years back that said that asylum can't just be granted based on domestic violence alone. However, that has been withdrawn, and so now they are open to receiving applications based on domestic violence as long as they meet the specific conditions and requirements of asylum. What will happen if you already did your biometrics for asylum and you paid for EAD 85? So I'm not sure where you are, but Amazing Creations, it sounds like you need personal legal advice and representation. So I wouldn't know how to advise you on that. The biometrics is just a fingerprinting appointment. It doesn't affect your application. It's for the background check. Hi, ma'am. Is someone on deportation proceedings and he's I-130 can approve or no, and deportation can stop? It may. So it may just depends on, who is the relative that's sponsoring you? Is it a spouse? Do you have, is your priority date current as well? An approved I-130 may be able to assist you to terminate the proceedings, but it's going to depend on the viability of your process as well. So it all depends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure you get legal advice and representation. When you're going through deportation proceedings, along with another pending application, it does get complex. You want to make sure that you understand your process and that you have the right guidance to lead you through. Can asylum pending travel outside the US, but obviously not to home country? So there is what's called advanced parole. And advanced parole, under certain circumstances, can allow you to travel, but it's going to come down to your circumstances, the reason for your travel, and so forth. And of course, the implications, considering the implications of traveling back to the home country. But in this case, you said you wouldn't. So while you're applying for asylum, there's no automatic grant of a travel document. It is something you could apply for. So it's a brother, sister under citizen. So if they're a citizen and a sibling, having an approved I-130 is going to be iffy. It's going to come down to also, do you have a current priority date as well? What is the viability of the I-130? Whether it can be, whether are you going to be successful through the whole process? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's complex. Make sure you get legal advice and representation. How long till I got my advanced parole with all this backlog? So Pamela, I wouldn't be able to tell you to a scientific certainty or with scientific precision how long it's going to take for you to get your advanced parole, but I'm seeing anywhere from 3 months to up to even a year to get that advanced parole. Hopefully they improve it with all the steps that they're taking, that they will improve the processing time, and we're going to see a big improvement in the time that it's going to take for you to get the work permits and the travel documents. Let me remind you that I'm also here on YouTube, so go ahead and put your questions in the comments so that I may answer your questions. Put your questions in the comments. I'm keeping a very close eye on it. Now, if you're listening, or if I've said that you need personal legal advice and representation, what you could do is go to the link in the profile. It's going to take you to the website. At the website, you will be able to call, fill out a contact form, or do online chat with a scheduling coordinator. And the scheduling coordinator will be more than happy to assist you to schedule a consultation so that we can talk about your particular situation, and then I can offer you further assistance. All right, so I'm waiting for more questions. So the consultation fee is $150, and that allows you to get legal advice for up to an hour. Now, during that time, I really dig deep into your situation so I can cover all the bases and give you the personalized legal advice you need, and then offer you representation should you qualify. How can you become a U.S. citizen if you overstayed and don't get married? What's the opinion? So it's going to depend on what other ways do you qualify. There are certain ways through, if you overstayed, that may take employment off the table, but it may not if you have a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, spouse, or parent. If you may qualify through other family members. You may qualify through other humanitarian forms of relief, such as if you were here working and you were working in a job that you were induced to work in by fraud or coercion or even force. That could be labor trafficking. Or if you were here and you were brought here to do things against your will, anything against your will, that could also be a form of trafficking. If you are the victim of a crime here, that could lead to you getting relief under the U visa, and eventually those could lead to permanent residence. So a number of different ways. That's where it's important to schedule the consultation so I can talk about your particular situation. Hi there, Jewel McCaw. It's nice to see you, and thanks for the kind words. So good day. I got married November. I have a son. He's 19. Can I file for him still? So if your spouse, if you got married and you are, I don't know if you are the U.S. citizen or your spouse, but your spouse, if you got married to the U.S. citizen before your son turned 18, I don't know if he just turned 19, but if he was under 18, and I guess if you got married in November, he probably was at a minimum 18. If he was already 18, he wouldn't qualify as a stepchild. You would have to wait until you got permanent resident to apply for him. But then, time is of the essence here, because once he turns 21, he's going to fall into a category that's going to take a longer time for him to get status. So there are a number of things here going on, Denise, and so it's important for you to make sure you schedule a consultation. Your spouse, if he was 18 at the time you got married to your husband, then he wouldn't qualify as a stepchild, and your husband would not be able to file for him, unless, of course, he is his biological father, not his stepfather. Now, if he was under 18, I think that's likely based on the facts, he would qualify as a stepchild, and your husband would be able to file for him, and he would be considered the stepchild of a U.S. citizen, which means his process would go as fast as it would yours process. When submitting the I-130 for spouse, must you submit financial documents same time as application? So CB, it's going to depend on how are you filing this? Is it the I-130 alone, or is it through adjustment of status? If it's through adjustment of status, usually they don't ask for financial documents. But what are those financial documents? Are you talking about the affidavit of support, or are you talking about joint bank statements or documents showing that you share in financial resources? So that question is a little too vague based on what I know. But usually if you're referring to the affidavit of support, so joint bank statement. So when you're filing an I-130, you do have to show at the time that your marriage is bona fide, and a part of that is to show your joint bank statements. Those would definitely be good evidence of a bona fide marriage. Denise, you're welcome. Now I'm going to be heading on over to Instagram, where I'm going to continue the live. So you can join me there. We're not finished yet. I'm just heading on over to another platform to share more information. I'm the immigration attorney on Instagram. I'm also going to be on Facebook. It's ST Law Office, the name of the law firm. You can join me there, continue to ask your questions there. Or if you want a recap of what I'm going to talk about, which is the reasons VAWA may be the best option for you, you can join me there. If you join late, you will get a lowdown on that information. Now, if you don't want to join me in a minute, you can always catch me tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube or TikTok. Or you can schedule your own appointment. Scheduling coordinators are available up until 11 p.m. tonight. So a lot of time to call and schedule your appointment, get confirmed, and for us to start talking. All right, so have a great evening. Have a great night. If I don't see you in a minute, I hope to speak with you in a consultation, or I hope to see you tomorrow.